Welcome to Law Firms on the Map, the go-to digital marketing show for attorneys serious about their business growth. I'm your host, Kristaps Brencans, CEO of On the Map Marketing. Our agency has helped thousands of attorneys crush their SEO and digital marketing goals over the last decade. Today, I'm meeting with local service ad mastermind, Thomas Glasgow. Thomas has built a niche agency offering only LSA ads for attorneys and has seen incredible growth in the last several years. We met a couple months ago at a conference, and I just thought this would be an incredible opportunity to talk to a niche expert that does LSA ads only for attorneys. Thomas, I am so excited to have you on. Welcome to Law Firms on the Map podcast.
Yeah, thanks, dude.
All right. Well, tell us, what has been this journey for you? How you got into law firm marketing and then segmented your way into just doing local service ads for attorneys?
Sure. So, long story short, I was in the concert industry before I was in legal marketing. So, legal marketing, I kind of just fell into, honestly. So, yeah, I was doing event ops, ticketing, and marketing for concerts from everyone from Luke Combs to J. Cole to Bone Thugs and Harmony, kind of running the gamut with artists like this on the event side of things. And so that was a lot of fun. Did that for about 10 years. And then COVID happened and no one was doing concerts anymore.
Well, there was a couple of virtual concerts.
Yeah, I mean, it's not really a concert though. Well, yeah, I mean, so I got laid off from my job then, and no one was hiring anyone doing event marketing or event ops. So I needed to do something. So I started my own ad agency, and I ended up working with a law firm. It was a great law firm. They were a client for a little while, and then I ended up joining them as their marketing director. And so I learned about legal marketing. Then I didn't know anything.
What practice area were they in?
Personal injury, primarily.
Of course.
Yeah.
Okay.
So a PI firm. And they were
What location?
In the South, in South Carolina. Yeah. My wife and I just had our third kid. What a time to go leave a job and start your own. But
great timing.
Yeah,
let's risk it all. Okay, so let's dissect this a little bit more because I think you gave us some pretty high level milestones here. So you worked at a PI firm in South Carolina. Did you come in as a marketing? So they were first your clients at the marketing agency, and then you sort of became their marketing lead. Is that what am I hearing?
Yeah. We started off with just exactly, an agency client relationship, and we really liked working with each other. So eventually I came on full time with them as their marketing director. So I stopped all my agency work and got rid of my roster to work full time with them. And so we did that for a little while. And now we're back on the other side and I'm doing agent.
All right. Give us some growth numbers. What did that look like? Where did you take them?
We had some great growth of, like 400+% of in terms of lead volume and things like that while we were there. So it was we did a lot of good things, and I learned, and the team was fantastic there, and everyone was awesome, and everyone was pulling in the right direction, and it really helped me understand legal marketing because I came from concerts, like I said, and so there's obviously a lot of nuance to legal that is not in live entertainment marketing, and they're different products too, and one's discretionary income spend and another is someone's in crisis mode spend most of the time, and so different mindsets that you're tapping into, different purchasing habits and things like that. So it was really interesting and fun to learn a different industry as well.
How did LSAs came in play? Obviously you're a marketing lead at a law firm. You're testing things, and now LSAs. Okay, so
I mean, LSAs were just launching as I was like really kind of, well, at least for attorneys. This would have been 2020, I think. So they just went live for attorneys. It was this brand new product. And so the business was an early adapter of it. And so we utilized LSAs and found great success with them. And at that time, this was, early mid 2020, I guess. Yeah. Like they weren't very competitive, right? Like there might've been a couple
It's
attorneys
like
in the
printing
market.
money.
Yeah. I mean, there weren't many people on them yet. And no one knew what they were doing with them and no one knew how to set them up. And it was kind
We
of,
thought, I think the overall sentiment was like, no way, this is staying. Like this ad concept has to go away. It's too good to be true.
yeah. Well, I mean, in a sense it was, right? Like, I mean, you don't see LSA campaigns running like they did 4 or 5 years ago. Like they just don't. There's too much competition now, right? And like also early on, like they showed every attorney. Like you were always ranking. You might have been in 50th position, but like you are at least in the rankings. Now it's like if you're not in the top 20, you don't exist because they won't even show you. So you always had a shot of climbing the ladder a little bit more than you do now. And I became obsessed with them then because I saw what a cool product it was, where the market was going with it, right? So like Google for the longest time has been providing leads for free, if you will, to service businesses, right? It's like if you rank in the agencies like yours and mine make money off, they're not free to our clients, right? They have to pay us for our services. But Google, outside of the data, is not really profiting when someone clicks on the map listing or the listing in the SERP or something like that. So LSAs seems to be Google's response to how can we monetize something like the SERP that isn't, or a map listing or a result in the SERP that isn't the just traditional PPC, right? It feels more like you're clicking a local map listing or something like that. There's the verified issue that they were pushing harder at the front. You don't really see that sold very much anymore. Like that was kind of a selling point. Like we screened these attorneys and they check all these boxes. It doesn't, like, I don't even think the consumer really understands what that is. They just know that it appears at the very top of Google. So Google kind of pivoted off of like trying to push that element, I think. But I just thought the product was fascinating. And I kind of thought like, this is where Google's going to be pushing a lot of their searchers too down the road. And we continue to see that be true as it still takes the ultimate top spot on both mobile and desktop. That announcement last week about it moving into the map section now. I mean, they were always showing it in the map section, but now when you click on the maps, instead of it literally just puts the LSAs back at the top, and then you have to scroll further down to the maps again. So they continue to insert it more and more into their organic listings to try to steal away those ad dollars from people. And I think it presents an opportunity for people if you can do the LSA as well. Like, I mean, it's an opportunity to get more leads off of them. Google's going to make their money now, but but anyway, that's why I kind of became real obsessed with trying to figure out how they work. Was I kind of thought what is happening would happen in terms of it just becoming a more prominent feature on Google. And so I just kind of became obsessed with trying to figure out how they work and what makes them move.
So you started a niche within a niche agency. So, being as deeply entrenched in LSA ad management, especially for law firms, you obviously have seen a lot and your experience precedes others. Give us some basic things that anyone should be looking at when running LSA ads. Can any law firm just get them started? What are these control factors to start reaping benefits from LSA ads?
Here's how I like to think of LSAs, and I want to understand Google's objectives. And this sounds elementary and stupid to some level, not stupid, but obvious. I think it's really relevant. So Google wants to do 2 things. One, they're a business. They want to make as much money as they can and maximize their profits, right? That's obvious. The other thing they want to do is they want to make sure that their searchers have a great experience using their product so that they continue to use their products so that Google can then, see the first point, make more money and collect more data, which is ultimately what also makes the money, right? And so LSAs mark this shift for Google from their old model where it, like with PPC, it was like, we don't care what happens really. I mean, there's some like a little bit in terms of like the ad rank and stuff, but like as long as like people are clicking on the ad and Google can charge the the advertiser for it, Google seems pretty happy to serve the ad up, right? With LSAs, they mark the shift where they say, we also want to make sure the searcher has a good experience now, because as you probably know, like running an LSA campaign, you can go in and you can tell the campaign, I want to spend $1 million a week. And if they, for whatever reason, don't rank you or don't think you provide a great service to their searcher, they're not going to let you spend a single penny on LSAs. And so I always think about those two things when I'm running LSAs is how can we help Google make money, and how can we show Google that this particular law firm provides the best service for Google searcher, the client. That's kind of what I focus on, are those two things. And that's always changing as the product develops and changes, right? Like, how can we signal those things to Google? They're always updating their documentation. We're always combing through what they're telling us and trying to read between the lines a little bit. You know, they say things, but if you always read what they're saying with that lens of how can we help them make money, essentially, and how can we provide a great or show them that the law firm provides a great service for a Google searcher, then I think you can glean some additional information.
So you're really touching on kind of two elements. You're saying, let Google make more money and showcase your client or yourself, obviously as a law firm, as reputable as possible. So when Google's users are finding you, they're like, oh yeah, this is a law firm that's a great fit for me. So how do you accomplish both of those things?
Yeah, well, so on the show Google that you're providing great service piece, I mean, they explicitly say this in their documentation, like they want to serve ads to businesses that they think have a high chance of converting those leads, essentially, right? Like, so they want to make sure that, so doing like the basic best practice things, like completing the feedback loop with Google on the back end of the platform, telling them you booked it or didn't book it, but then also understanding that Google is using AI to analyze the calls, and understanding that, because we're seeing this now, like they just rolled out this week or announced this week that all disputing is going to be 100% automated now. So you used to be able to dispute leads manually, like I don't want this lead, I do want this lead. They're doing away with all that. That's going to go away. And their AI is just going to automatically do it for you. And so it's getting more sophisticated, their ability to use AI to analyze the calls and understand what's happening. And so law firms need to adjust to that change in the market and be able to make sure that they're on that call providing fantastic service and help solving problems and doing those sorts of things. And there's particular buckets we like to make sure are checked off in specific LSA, I call them my LSA intake protocols, that we like to implement to make sure that we're signaling to the AI all the things we want to signal, but also on that same note, not signaling what we don't want to signal, right? There's certain things we don't want to do that show the algorithm that you're not providing great service. So we want to keep the algo from hearing that.
Let me pause you right there, Thomas. There's a lot to unpack what you just said, from machine learning, case intakes, and LSA algorithm. How do we dissect this in consumable kind of pieces for someone who's not in digital marketing? Just I say law firm operator or marketer considering LSAs or testing them. What are some of these fundamentals? And you're talking about intake, you're talking about the profiles. Now you're talking about machine learning, analyzing LSA ad conversations with the clients. Give us some a couple of bullet point priority points to focus on.
I think the important thing with LSAs is to just provide great customer service, truthfully. So like in terms of how you handle your intake. So you want to solve customer problems. So let me give you an example. If someone calls and they have a case type that's closely related to something that you handle, but maybe not exactly what you would want, instead of just immediately turning that down and not helping or engaging with that client, with that caller, providing actual resources or actually helping to guide that person through their situation, even if you're not going to sign it, signals all sorts of things to Google in terms of you. One, you're going to have a longer call, which I believe to be an ad rank factor. Two, the system's going to hear you moving that person's case forward in a or moving their case forward in a meaningful direction, even if you're not signing it, which I think is important to the system. So there's things like that where like really, but I think the important principle really is just like if you're providing great service on the phone, know that Google is listening to everything that's happening and using that to make decisions in terms of how they rank you.
How did you come to that realization that that's what's happening?
Well, one, they are telling us that now, but they weren't 9 months ago, right? When they started using AI. But I mean, they're telling us like, I mean, particularly with this new automated lead dispute feature, it's like they're because it used to be manual. Like if you would send it in and you would just so say a lead came in and a case type you didn't practice in, you practice personal injury, a family law lead comes in, you dispute the lead as not in your practice area. It would go off to some manual review for 5 days to 14 days and then come back approved or not approved based on the actual manual review that happened. And then this started, in the last year or so becoming automated. And now the reviews come in instantaneously. Like if you dispute a lead, you'll get a response back in 30 seconds because the AI has already analyzed it essentially, and it'll tell you if it's approved or denied. And so they've been using this AI for a while to analyze calls. And when you read some of their documentation, they are incredibly vague and ambiguous with some statements on purpose. And so I like to read between the lines and try to understand, well, if they're trying to make as much money as possible, if they're trying to provide the best results possible to their searchers and the best experience to their searchers, and if they already have this AI in place that is capable of doing all this analysis, it makes sense that they would be doing this as well. And so that was kind of a hunch I had a while ago, and now we're seeing them start to formally acknowledge and announce that as well.
How do you coach your clients on that?
What I do, because I care about two things with these campaigns, is how many cases are we signing off of each month, and how much does it cost to sign each case? And everything else on LSAs, because LSAs are really, they're lead generation campaigns, right? And so those, to me, with lead gen campaigns are the only two metrics that really matter, right? In a lead gen campaign, it's like everything else is kind of window dressing. And so I want to get as involved as I possibly can in my law firm's my intake process and operations process to help them make sure that we're implementing those things. So with the firms I work with, I work really closely with the intake teams to help coach them on all these particular protocols and processes I have for LSAs. But it also means working with their operations and IT teams to make sure we have, the proper things set up, whether it's in their call tracking software to make sure that intake knows when an LSA is even coming in, right? It's like, it starts with the tech piece is like, how do we recognize an LSA call? So maybe it's just adding a whisper message in CallRail. Maybe it's working with their soft phone provider to add in a custom number that has, a caller ID attached to it, things like that. So yeah, the intake training process to then being really integrated in their CRM and actually following up on every lead and making sure that the leads actually work. If the lead's missed, we let our law firm partners know, hey, this lead came through. We don't see it in the CRM. And we send intake an email so they can reach out and try to contact that lead and chase them down. We're doing that. We're listening to like every call that comes in. So we learn a lot about our partner law firms intake processes and offer lots of meaningful and actionable suggestions and optimizations for their intake processes to help convert these leads more. Because the best way to decrease your cost of acquisition is just to sign more cases, right? And so if we're driving in qualified leads, like how can we spend the same or less money and sign more cases? And there's normally some places we can optimize on the intake front for that. So, we really like to get as fully integrated into our partners' firms as we possibly can and act more like an extension of the firm as opposed to an ad agency that's kind of an outside entity.
And I think with your background being a law firm marketing manager, This is a natural kind of full circle decision you have made. Now, talk to me a little bit about the numbers. What are you guys seeing as far as general averages for, let's say, pretty competitive metropolitan cities for, case acquisition costs?
It depends on the market. Some are more expensive than others, but in general, like your more competitive markets are going to be about $200 to $400 a lead. And then we, on average, see about 20-ish% of those leads being qualified. And then from there, it's what can you convert at, right? So if you're converting at 100% on a $200 lead and 20 are qualified, then you're looking at about $1,000 cost of acquisition. So some clients are hitting that, but in general, we're about $1,000 to $2,000 cost of acquisition for personal injury, primarily auto, off of LSAs.
Let's just call it an average of 1,500. That's a really good number. Can you predictably expect that every single month? Or there's still this element with LSA ads that you don't know what might happen next month?
The biggest problem we have with LSAs, honestly, is new competitors on platforms. So with the way we operate LSAs, yes, we have a pretty predictable flow of leads that come in as well as cases signed. And clients don't deviate too far from that average number. What throws it off is when a lot of new competitors come on platform. And this, in the last month, has been a big thing really that I'm seeing in a lot of markets. There's been a big, I don't know what happened, but there's been a big explosion in terms of new people that are recently launching onto the platform.
Well, every conference you go to, LSAs are talked like holy grail.
And so everyone's getting on. And so the interesting thing that happens is like just weathering that storm for a month. So I always think of Google a little bit like a drug dealer. So hear me out.
Google's a drug dealer. Thomas, tell us why.
Google the drug dealer. So like when you first get on platform, like they give you a little taste for free. Like they'll bump you up to the top. So like when you first sign up and they put you on, they'll like throw you up to the top and maybe you get a lead or two and you're like, oh, this is great. But then inevitably what happens with a lot of these firms is like they don't have it set up properly. They don't do the right things from an operational perspective. They don't have the dashboard set up correctly, whatever. They have bad intake. Lots of things can cause an account to drop off. But most of the time, a lot of these new accounts, they'll quickly fall off within a couple of weeks, right? So like Google gives them a shot. They don't perform how Google wants. They provide a bad service for Google searcher and they fall off the platform. And then your regular, folks who are traditionally ranking between the 1 and 6 position will cycle back up and appear. So that's the biggest threat to consistent results with LSAs is just other competitors who come on platform. And if you have a big wave of that over a couple month period, then it can cause some ranking issues. But the biggest thing with LSAs is just like staying consistent, not panicking with it and doing what you're supposed to do. Because over time, if you keep executing how you need at a high level, those new businesses will drop back off. And as long as you're still doing what you need to do, the cream rises back to the top.
And I think you bring up a good point with that. That's where your overall marketing strategy needs to come in place because it can't be one trick pony just doing LSA ads. You do regular SEO, perhaps traditional PPC, billboards. I mean, the list is endless. You have to dial in several channels, tweak them for them to work properly, and then one will perform better than the other one, but you have to diversify your marketing efforts.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. Like LSAs are a great tool in a marketer's tool bag of ways to generate leads. Attorneys, I understand, like them because they're pretty quick, right, to like generate results if they're working. You can start. It's not like launching a branding campaign where it can take 6 months of running it to like see any sort of result in terms of cases signed. LSAs you can turn on and 2 days later sign a case off of it. So they're very attractive in that regard. But yeah, they're certainly just a piece of your marketing mix. And and relying on them as your only source is not the ideal strategy.
Those are some awesome insights. How do you scale them? Does number of locations play a factor in scaling your LSA ads?
Yeah, Google. This is an interesting development. There's been a lot of developments in like the last 30 days or announcements.
I mean, everywhere, right? Just from SEO algorithm changes to LSA.
I don't know maybe it's, I have no idea, but there's seriously been so many updates that have come through. I feel like in the last 30 days. So they've recently announced that proximity is not like a big rank factor for them anymore. I don't think that's very true because once again, they're being ambiguous with this. So they came out with something that essentially said proximity, we're not weighting that heavily or maybe even at all. And we just don't really think it matters to our searchers where the businesses are located as long as they can service that searcher in that area. We're not so concerned with the business's location, which I get. Like, it makes sense. It's not like, going to Starbucks where like you want the Starbucks to be right there. If your attorney is 30 miles away, but they can do everything digitally, like who cares where they're located, right? Like that makes sense to me. I understand that logic. I don't think though that like that statement holds true. Like when you expand it to say you're in Texas and one side on the very far, west side of Texas, you have a Google business profile. Like it's not going to rank all the way hundreds and hundreds of miles over on the east side. So like, I think there's some nuance to them saying proximity isn't that big of a deal. Like I think that's true in like a local market or maybe even like a DMA or MSA or like sticking with our Texas example, like the benefit of having 4 offices in Austin for LSA purposes probably is slim, but the benefit of having an office in Austin and I don't know what a city is far away from Austin, say El Paso or something, or somewhere like, a little ways away, like there's some benefit there still.
If you want to scale PI firms LSA ads, you would say, hey, we need another office. Plus, that would help them SEO wise, so they can open another office, scale that location, and then you can launch LSA ads associated with that location.
Yeah, that's one good way to scale it for sure.
Okay. Do you need to have can you do it with virtual address, or you need to have a physical location address with approved Google Business Profile?
I like to do it legit. So like, yeah, I want a GBP that's set up and functioning, and you could meet a client in that office.
Does reviews matter?
Yeah, reviews matter.
I mean, it's totally like ranking a Google Business Profile.
Look, I mean, that's what I'm saying from like, when you asked earlier, one of the secrets to it or whatever, it's like providing great customer service. Google's working really hard to figure out how they can obtain that information to see if you're providing great service through reviews, through listening to phone calls, like all these things. They really want to get in the most objective data they possibly can on that, which is listening to the actual conversations, getting feedback from actual clients in the form of reviews. They want that information because that is what really tells them if you're providing a great result for their searcher.
And in Google Business Profile case, one of the ranking factors, the prominence, like how prominent you are in that location. So that probably plays a factor too. I was recently doing some research on Denver market, and there's just one law firm that's been doing marketing for 50 years, and they came up in LSA ads on every single search I ever made. Oh my God, they're just crushing it. All across Colorado, for that matter. And they have like 10 locations in the whole state. But it definitely played a factor. And same with Morgan & Morgan. They will come up in possibly every LSA ad search query if they're bidding on them.
Yeah, well, I mean, they have a ton of offices that they pop up everywhere, and so they're always going to be mixed on it, and they do a great job generating reviews too. I mean, there's a big piece too with reviews on LSAs to consistency and having a consistent cadence with reviews as opposed to just like bulking or like bulk getting 100 of them. You know what I mean? Like, because reviews are in part how Google determines if you're providing great service still, and so they know what you're doing. If you go and run, if you incentivize the staff to go and do a huge contest and you get 300 reviews, but the rest in a 3-week period, but the rest of the year you get 2 reviews a month kind of thing. Like they know what's going on there. What they really want to see is that whatever your normal cadence as a law firm is, that you're just consistently getting that same cadence of reviews consistently or hitting that cadence, because that tells them your service is consistent and you're always doing a good job and everyone's consistently happy with you.
All right, Thomas, you've been very generous with your time. I have a last question for you. So you and I, we're moving to Arizona. You're starting a PI firm. What are we doing?
I mean, LSAs, I would start with LSAs.
All right, let's go. What's our blueprint? What do we need to do?
Our blueprint. I mean, I'd work on building out a great intake team first. Like, I mean, you need great lawyers doing great work and great case managers, paralegals, and all the obvious things. But from like kind of the marketing piece, like great intake solves a lot of problems. Big believer in investing in intake and a sales team there, because we can leads. Like it's not as hard to get leads, I think, as people think. Like converting them, chasing them, like that's where a lot of the hard work is done. So intake for me is huge. So yeah, we're starting our Arizona firm. We're building out a world-class intake team. Probably launch some LSAs, but then the other low-hanging fruit that I see, and it's a long play, so it's not as fun, is like really robust referral systems and processes, right? Where you're, whether they're gifting programs or nurturing programs and things, but things that like stand out amongst the crowd and all the noise to engage with people in a really meaningful way who you already have a relationship with. I think existing clients, existing people who have spoken with your firm, and all the first party data that law firms have the ability to collect is a really underutilized tool in terms of growing their caseload over time. And it's a longer play, right? Because like the birthday card and the phone call and the random gift that you send out of the blue might take 5 years before it ever sees that person refer someone to you, or it might never work. But I think your investment in programs like that is huge, because it's so much harder to, I mean, your best customer is your existing one. And I think that's so underlooked in personal injury, because it's always viewed as there are these kind of single event things, right? And so finding ways to utilize the relationships that you already have with existing clients and leads is a really underserved area right now in the legal marketing space.
I love it. Thomas, I really appreciate you coming on, sharing your insights and gaining expertise over years. It's very much appreciated. People want to chat or ask some other questions, where can they find you?
Yeah, they can shoot me an email at thomas@1122management.com, or they can just go to 1122marketing.com, and my calendar link's on there. You can book the meeting, and happy to chat and talk there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Thomas. Good luck with LSA ads, and I'm sure we'll talk soon again.
Thanks, Chris.